The Moorgate Disaster, Lost Souls, Chapter 1, A Whisper in the Dark, February 28, 1975, Friday morning. Beneath London, in the dark tunnels of the world's oldest metro network, at exactly 8:46 a.m. something went horribly wrong. People died, 74 were injured, and 50 years later, no one still knows why, but the internet hasn't forgotten. Stories lurking in the depths, unfinished questions, and, according to some, something still wandering in those tunnels. A user wrote this on Reddit a few years ago. A man I'd never seen before appeared in my dream. He was waiting for me on the Moorgate platform. He said his name was Les and whispered, "It was my accident, but it wasn't my fault."
I swear. When I woke up that morning, I searched on Google.
There was a train crash there in 1975, and the train driver's name was
Leslie Newson? Fiction?
coincidence, or the cry of something that's been wandering that dark tunnel for 50 years. You decide, because tonight we're descending into the darkest secret of the London Underground. Chapter 2, 8:46 a.m., The Final Journey, February 28, 1975, Friday morning, the busy morning rush hour commute, the winter cold, sweating bodies beneath coats, the underground, crowded as always. Leslie Newson, 56 years old, an experienced motorman. He'd been working for London Underground for 6 years. He'd been on the Northern City line for the past 3 months. That morning, he had his milk, sugar, rulebook, and notebook with him. In his jacket pocket, 270, over 2,000 in today's money. He was going to buy his daughter a second-hand car after his shift. He joked with his colleagues, "Go easy on the sugar, I'll want another cup when I come off duty." A normal day.
An ordinary shift.
So it seemed. But that day would never end. Train 272 departed Drayton Park at 8:38 a.m. 30 seconds late, there were approximately 300 passengers inside. The front carriages were always more crowded because they were closer to the exit. And one detail, the students from the nearby City of London School for Girls, hundreds of young girls who normally travelled on that train, weren't at school that day. External examinations were being held at the school. If their school had been open that day, the death toll could have reached hundreds. Coincidence? Chapter 3, The Ones Who Didn't Stop Travel Time from Old Street to Moorgate, 56 seconds. Moorgate is a terminus. At the end of the platform, there's a red warning light, sand drag, and a 20-meter overrun tunnel. Every train slows down. Every driver brakes on every ordinary day. 46 Dermushems. Passengers waiting on platform 9 saw the train coming. But something was wrong. The train wasn't slowing down, it was accelerating. The railway workers on the platform looked at the driver. They recognized him, Leslie Newson, and what they saw would disturb them for the rest of their lives. Witness statement. He was sitting bolt upright, his cap on his head, his uniform neat. His hands were on the controls. We looked at his face. His eyes were wide, staring ahead with a determined expression. He wasn't moving at all.
He was frozen.
Like stone.
As if he'd been electrocuted, and we threw ourselves against the wall.
We raised our arms to protect our heads. He didn't move a muscle. Impact. The train passed along the platform at 30 to 40 mph. It swallowed the sand drag, shattered the hydraulic buffer, and crashed into the 1.5-meter thick concrete wall at the end of the 20-meter overrun tunnel. The first carriage was crushed from 16 meters to 6 meters. The second carriage concertinaed. The third carriage rode over it. The carriages folded into a V shape, one above, one below, one in the middle. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and then silence. Chapter 4. Hell ambulances arrived within 6 minutes. Incredible speed, but they had to reach that dark tunnel 70 meters deep. Radios didn't work, there was no ventilation. The temperature reached 50 degrees. Dust and smoke stung their eyes. Oxygen depleted. One doctor said, "If there is a hell, I saw it." The rescue operation lasted 6 days. 1,324 firefighters, 240 police officers, 80 ambulance workers, 16 doctors, countless volunteers. After 13 hours, the last injured person was rescued. That person was a 19-year-old police trainee, Margaret Lyles. She was trapped in the front carriage. She remained under the wreckage for 13 hours. Her foot had to be amputated on site so she could be extracted. She later told the press, "My leg was completely numb.
I only thought it was broken.
They told me they were going to put me to sleep to help get me out. It made sense."
I didn't know anything about it until I got back from surgery. Margaret survived, but 43 people didn't. 4 days later,
The final body was reached. Leslie Newson. The driver's cab, normally 1 meter deep, had been crushed to 15 centimeters. X-rays showed his hands were still on the controls. He had never raised his hands to protect his face. Human instinct is to protect your face. But he didn't. Chapter 5. The Unexplained E. Government inquiry began on March 13, 1975. They took the train apart, checked every bolt. Result: there was no fault with the train. The brakes worked. The signals were correct. The dead man's handle was still depressed, meaning Newson was conscious. But he never used the brakes. The autopsy was performed by Professor Keith Simpson. Results: no heart attack, no stroke, no epilepsy, no brain disease, no alcohol in initial findings, no drugs, no electrical injury, a perfectly healthy man. Cause of death: shock from multiple injuries. But wait. Weeks later, second tests taken from the decomposed body showed high alcohol levels in his blood. Some scientists said this resulted from post-mortem microbiological activity. Others weren't sure. So was Leslie Newson intoxicated, or did his body produce alcohol? Answer: nobody knows. Chapter 6. Theories and Mysteries. The official report described the crash as driver error. But what error? Theory 1, suicide. Some thought Leslie Newson committed suicide, but counter-evidence. He had brought money to buy a car for his daughter. He had been joking with his colleagues. There were no problems in his life. He was a happily married man. A psychologist said suicides rarely take others with them. Theory 2, distraction. Maybe he was daydreaming. Maybe he forgot where he was, but he'd been using that route for 3 months. He'd successfully completed his rounds 3 times that morning. Witnesses spoke of his alert and attentive appearance. And remember, his hands were on the controls. He never moved. Theory 3, medical crisis, akinetic mutism. Some doctors suggested Leslie might have experienced akinetic mutism, a state of being conscious but motionless, or transient global amnesia, sudden memory loss. The problem: no neurological damage was found in the autopsy. Theory 12 Historform Story to Sanchul 4. The 1974 assault. On June 21, 1974, Leslie Newson was assaulted by a passenger while trying to help a woman being harassed. His eye was cut, his cheeks bruised. A book published in 2015 suggests this assault may have caused permanent brain damage. His behavior in the crash might have been a delayed epileptic seizure. But 8 months later, without showing any symptoms, is it possible? Theory 5, previous overshoots. A week before the crash, Leslie Newson overshot the platform at another station. A witness said it was like he was in a trance. He was sitting upright and staring ahead,
as if he'd seen something.
He didn't even notice it was a stop. Suicide expert Bruce Danto. That doesn't sound like a mistake to me. That sounds like someone learning how to run a train into a wall. Was it a rehearsal?
Or was something calling him?
Chapter 7. Whispers in the Dark. And this is where the story gets even stranger. Winter of 1974-75, a few weeks before the crash. Workers doing maintenance at Moorgate station reported seeing something in the tunnel. A man in blue overalls. At first, they thought he was a colleague, but as he approached, his face bore an expression of indescribable horror, and then the man continued walking and vanished into the tunnel wall. Other workers saw the same ghost. Some say this is the ghost of a maintenance worker who was killed by a train on that line years ago. After the crash, newspapers wrote the ghost may have been seen by driver Leslie Newson, and this distraction caused the crash. But there's more. In the months after the crash, night shift workers said they heard inexplicable sounds. Whispers, screams, footsteps. Sudden, cold air drafts were felt in the dark corners of the
tunnel. Some swore they saw the ghosts of those who died on the day of the
crash on Platform 9 Moorgate suddenly ceased to be just a physical location. It became the story of lost souls. Chapter 8 questions on March 19th, 1975. A memorial service attended by 2,000 people was held at St. Paul's Cathedral. Leslie Newson's widow and family were there. In 2013, a monument listing the names of the 43 victims was erected in Finsbury Square. In 2014, a second plaque was placed on the wall of Moorgate Station, and in 1978, an automatic braking system called Moorgate Protection was installed at all terminal stations. If the driver doesn't brake, the train automatically stops. After 43 people died, today Platform 9 is still in use. It's no longer operated by London Underground, but by Great Northern Railway. The train line changed. The system was modernised, but the questions remain. What did Leslie Newson see that morning? Why didn't he raise his hands to protect his face? Why didn't he brake? Those overshoots the week before? Were they rehearsals?
Or was something calling him?
Chapter 9, Lost Souls. The London Underground has been operating since 1860 through 400 kilometres of tunnel, 270 stations, millions of people every day, and beneath in the darkness.
How many stories are buried?
The Moorgate crash is officially recorded as driver error. But what is the truth?
A medical crisis?
A moment of distraction? Suicide? Or something science can't explain? 50 years later, we still don't know. But on some nights in those dark tunnels, the sounds are still heard. Some passengers feel something on Platform 9, and some see a man in blue overalls in their dreams, whispering, "It was my accident, but it wasn't my fault." Moorgate is no longer just a station. It's home to lost souls, and perhaps they're still searching for answers.